The ceremony hall was designed to intimidate. Soaring ceilings, massive pillars carved from single pieces of dark stone, lighting that made the Krev'thar warriors look even more imposing than their natural 10-foot height already achieved. Captain James Holt stood at attention, feeling distinctly small despite being 6 feet tall, perfectly average for a human, tiny by Alliance standards. 18 months of serving alongside the Krev'thar military had taught him to adjust his perspective, but moments like this still drove home how different humans were from their allies. War leader Krev'thar stood before him, massive arms crossed over his armored chest, bioluminescent patterns on his scales pulsing with colors that Holt's cultural database identified as pleasure and satisfaction. Captain Holt, your tactical leadership during the Keshar Campaign was exemplary. Thousands of Krev'thar warriors owe their lives to your strategic planning. The Alliance honors such service. I was doing my job, war leader. My team and I were honored to support the Krev'thar forces. You exceeded all expectations for a human commander. You have proven your species' value to the Alliance despite. Krev'thar paused diplomatically. Certain physical limitations. Holt kept his expression neutral. He'd gotten used to the casual dismissal of human capabilities. Humans were respected for their tactical thinking and adaptability, but the size and strength-based culture of the Krev'thar made it hard for them to see past physical differences. It is the Alliance's tradition to reward exceptional service in ways that honor the recipient's status, Krev'thar continued. We have carefully considered what reward would be appropriate for a human commander who has distinguished himself so completely. He gestured and attendants moved forward from the side of the hall. They were escorting a small figure, a woman, not human. Sylari, Holt's mind supplied from cultural briefings, a client species within the Alliance. She was maybe 4 feet tall, delicate features, large eyes that seemed to take up half her face. Soft bioluminescent patterns traced lines across her skin, currently pulsing with colors that looked like fear. She wore formal clothing that was beautiful but revealed far more than seemed comfortable, clearly chosen to display rather than protect. Her hands were bound in ceremonial restraints, and she walked with her head bowed, long hair obscuring her face. Holt felt ice forming in his stomach. Captain Holt, Krev'thar announced with clear pride, you are granted Lyssa of Clan Venth. She is yours to command, to serve your household, to provide comfort and companionship as you require. This is a great honor. Sylari are highly prized for their grace and service. She has been prepared specifically for assignment to a distinguished patron. The words hit Holt like physical blows. They were giving him a person, as a reward. Like property, the woman Lyssa remained still, trembling slightly. She didn't look up, didn't speak, just stood there like she was waiting for judgment. Holt forced his voice to work. I appreciate the gesture, war leader, but I can't accept a person as property. That's not something humans do. Krev'thar's patterns shifted to confusion. She is not property in the crude sense you suggest. She is a client, bound by law and tradition to serve her designated patron. This is how the Alliance functions. The strong protect the weak and the weak serve the strong. It is natural order, beneficial to all. With respect, war leader, where I come from, people aren't rewards. They have rights, autonomy, self-determination. The Sylari have protection and purpose under our system. Krev'thar's voice carried the patience of someone explaining obvious facts. Without strong patrons, they would be vulnerable in a dangerous galaxy. This arrangement provides them safety, stability, and meaning. In return, they offer service and companionship. It is a fair exchange. He gestured toward Lyssa, who still hadn't moved. She has been extensively prepared for this honor. She understands her role and accepts it. She will serve you well. Do you refuse the Alliance's traditional recognition of your service? Holt realized he was trapped. Refusing outright would insult the Krev'thar and potentially damage human-Alliance relations. But accepting meant participating in something that felt fundamentally, deeply wrong. He looked at Lyssa. Her hands were shaking. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin pulsed with colors he didn't know how to read, but that looked like distress. She was terrified. "I accept the honor," Holt said carefully, his mind racing. "But I need to be clear about something. I won't treat her as property. She'll have autonomy and respect in my household. Real choice about how she lives." Thexer's patterns shifted to what might have been approval. "Of course. A wise patron treats their clients with appropriate care. It reflects well upon your status and understanding of Alliance traditions. The legal arrangements will be finalized. Lyssa is now under your protection and authority. Use both wisely." The ceremony concluded with formal documentation, actual legal contracts transferring responsibility for Lyssa to Holt. He signed because refusing would make things worse, but every stroke of his stylus felt like a betrayal of his own values. When it was over, attendants escorted Lyssa to Holt's quarters. He followed numb, trying to figure out how to fix a situation he'd never wanted to be part of in the first place. Holt's assigned quarters were generous by military standards: a suite with bedroom, living area, small kitchen, bathroom. Designed for human proportions, which meant the ceilings were a reasonable 8 feet, instead of the 15-foot clearances in Krev'thar spaces. Lyssa arrived with 2 attendants who provided Holt with a data tablet containing what they called her contract of service. Legal documentation of obligations, duties, rights, heavily weighted toward obligations, disciplinary procedures and guidelines for appropriate patron behavior. Reading it made Holt feel sick. It was slavery dressed up in legal language and cultural tradition. After the attendants left, he and Lyssa were alone for the first time. She immediately moved to the corner of the room, knelt in what was clearly a formal posture, and fixed her eyes on the floor. The ceremonial restraints had been removed, but she held her hands together in front of her like they were still bound. "You don't need to do that," Holt said gently, staying near the door to give her space. No response. She didn't move. "Lyssa, right? I'm James, or Holt if you prefer. You really don't need to kneel. You can sit on the furniture or stand, whatever's comfortable." Still nothing. She was clearly terrified, waiting for something. Probably waiting for him to reveal his true intentions now that they were alone. Holt carefully sat on the floor, making himself lower than her, less threatening. "I need you to understand something. I didn't ask for this arrangement. I don't believe in owning people or having people forced to serve me because of some species hierarchy. I know that's how the Alliance works, but it's not how I work. It's not how humans work." Lyssa's eyes flicked toward him briefly, the first time she'd looked at him directly. Large eyes, amber-colored, carrying intelligence and fear in equal measure. Then her gaze dropped back to the floor. "I'm not going to hurt you," Holt continued. "I'm not going to force you to do anything. You're safe here. That's the most important thing I need you to understand. Safe. Whatever expectations you have about what happens next, whatever they told you to prepare for, none of that is going to happen unless you want it to." Her hand stopped shaking quite so badly. "Small progress. I'm going to set up the bedroom for you. I'll take the couch out here. You'll have privacy, your own space, a door that locks. And I'm going to find you some real clothes, not whatever ceremonial outfit they put you in. Comfortable clothes that actually cover you properly. Does that sound okay?" Lyssa spoke for the first time, her voice barely above a whisper. "That is not how this is supposed to work." "Then we'll do it differently. I'm human. We do a lot of things differently from the Krev'thar. They will expect me to serve you, to fulfill my duties. If I don't, if you report that I'm not properly fulfilling my contract, I'll be reassigned to educational facilities." The way she said educational facilities made it clear they were anything but. "I'm not going to report you for anything. You haven't done anything wrong. This entire situation is wrong, but you're not the problem. The system is." For the first time, Lyssa looked at him directly and held his gaze. "Why are you saying these things?" "Because they're true, and because I need you to understand that I'm serious. You're not my property. You're a person who got forced into an unjust situation. I'm going to do whatever I can to make that situation less terrible. Over the following days, Holt established routines that prioritized Lyssa's safety and autonomy. He gave her the bedroom, took the couch himself. He replicated clothing from human patterns scaled down to her size, comfortable, practical, nothing like the revealing outfit she'd arrived in. She remained distant, clearly waiting for the situation to change, waiting for him to reveal ulterior motives or demands. But Holt maintained boundaries, treated her like a person, gave her space and privacy. He also started learning about Sylari culture through careful conversations when Lyssa was willing to talk. The Sylari had been independent 3 generations ago. Then, a larger, aggressive species called the Nether threatened their worlds. The Krev'thar Alliance intervened, defeated the Nether, and protected the Sylari homeworlds. That protection became permanent, became systematic, became the client system where Sylari were assigned to serve Alliance members in exchange for safety and stability. "We didn't choose this," Lyssa explained one evening, her voice carefully neutral. "Our great-grandparents accepted Alliance protection because they were facing extinction. The protection worked, but then it never ended, and it changed. Became less about protection and more about service. Now every Sylari is assigned to a patron when they reach adulthood. We have no independent legal status, no citizenship rights. We exist through service to those who protect us. That's slavery with extra steps. It's the system that exists, fighting it would be." She didn't finish, but her fear completed the sentence. "Dangerous, futile, deadly. You can leave if you want," Holt told her. "I'll figure out the paperwork somehow. Or just ignore it. I'm not going to keep you here." "Leave to where?" Lyssa's voice held genuine confusion. "Sylari without patrons are considered non-persons under Alliance law. We can't own property, can't sign contracts, can't travel without patron authorization. We'd be arrested as escaped clients and reassigned, probably to worse situations as punishment." "That's insane. That's control by design. Dependent populations can't rebel." Holt realized she wasn't just afraid of him, she was afraid of the entire structure around them, and that fear was completely justified. Weeks passed. Lyssa gradually relaxed, though she maintained careful formality whenever they were in public or anyone else was present. But in private, she started letting her guard down. Holt noticed things about her that the system seemed designed to obscure. She was intelligent. When he was working on tactical briefings, she'd occasionally ask questions that showed deep understanding of strategy and logistics. Once she pointed out a flaw in a supply chain analysis that would have caused problems if unaddressed. She was educated. References to history, culture, mathematics came up in casual conversation. She'd clearly had extensive schooling before being assigned to service. She was careful. She never contradicted him in front of other Alliance members, maintained the appearance of proper client behavior when anyone was watching. But in private, she had opinions, perspectives, a personality the system tried to erase. One evening, Holt returned to his quarters to find Lyssa reading one of his books, a human history text about the abolition of slavery in various Earth societies. "You can read any of them," he said immediately. "I should have told you that explicitly. Everything here is available to you. Nothing is restricted. Patrons don't usually allow clients access to their personal items. I'm not a patron. I'm just a person who got forced into a system I don't agree with, and I'm trying not to make it worse." Lyssa closed the book carefully. This history, about humans enslaving other humans based on appearance or ancestry. How it was legal, culturally accepted, defended by those who benefited from it, then slowly challenged and eventually abolished. She looked at him. "Is that why you're treating me differently? Because you see parallels?" "The parallels are obvious. People as property, natural order justifications, claims that the enslaved are better off this way. It's the same structure with different window dressing. But human slavery was within one species. Alliance client systems are between species. They argue that makes it different, that biological differences justify different treatment. That's bullshit. Species shouldn't determine rights any more than race or gender should. A person is a person. Doesn't matter if they're 4 feet tall or 10 feet tall or have scales or fur or skin. If you're sentient and capable of self-determination, you deserve autonomy. Lyssa was quiet for a long time. Why do humans care? About justice for species that aren't human. Because injustice is wrong regardless of who it happens to. We went through our own painful history of exploitation and slavery. Learned, eventually, that you can't build a good society on the backs of people you're hurting. The Krev'thar and the rest of the Alliance haven't learned that yet. They believe they're being generous, protecting smaller species, giving us purpose and meaning through service. Do you believe that? Lyssa met his eyes. I believe that questioning it publicly would make me disappear. That's what happens to Sylari who resist their assignments. They're sent to educational facilities and no one sees them again. The system protects those who serve willingly, those who don't. She didn't finish. That's not protection. That's coercion backed by threat. Yes. But acknowledging that changes nothing. We have no power, no voice, no way to fight back. Holt leaned forward. What if that could change? What if there was a way to challenge the system? Would you want that? Want it? Lyssa's laugh was bitter. Of course I'd want it. Every Sylari wants it. But wanting and achieving are different things. The Krev'thar control everything. Military, government, law enforcement. We control nothing. Humans are new to the Alliance. You're here because you provide tactical capabilities they value, but you're still junior partners. You can't challenge the fundamental structure of Alliance society. Maybe not alone. But humans have this annoying habit of trying to fix broken systems even when we're told it's impossible. Over the following weeks, Holt started researching. Quietly. He connected with other human officers, discovered that many were similarly uncomfortable with the client system, but unsure how to address it without causing diplomatic incidents. He learned that the client system extended beyond just the Sylari. Multiple smaller species were classified as client species to varying degrees, a hierarchy of service and dependence based primarily on size and military capability. He documented cases of client mistreatment that violated even the Alliance's own guidelines for appropriate patron behavior. Abuse, exploitation, punishment that went beyond what was supposedly legal. He shared what he learned with Lyssa. "It's worse than I thought," he told her one evening, pulling up case files. "This isn't just cultural tradition that treats people differently. It's systematic exploitation with legal framework designed to prevent any challenge or escape." "Yes," Lyssa said simply. "That's what I've been trying to tell you. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed to extract service from populations that have no way to refuse. Tell me about the underground." Lyssa froze. "What underground? You implied it before." "That Sylari talk to each other, watch out for each other. There's some kind of network, isn't there? Communication channels the Alliance doesn't know about or pretends not to see." She was silent for a long time. Then, "We survive by being underestimated. They think we're weak, decorative, simple-minded, so they don't guard their conversations around us, don't secure their systems when we're nearby, don't consider that we might be listening, learning, organizing very carefully and secretly." "How organized?" "Enough to know who's in danger, who needs help, where the worst situations are, but not enough to do anything about it except survive and share information. What if you had resources, protection, somewhere for people to go if they wanted to leave their patrons?" Lyssa looked at him with sudden intensity. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe it's time to build an underground railroad, help people escape a system that's enslaving them, create alternatives, force the Alliance to confront what they're actually doing. That would be illegal, would violate your service contracts, would potentially destroy human-Alliance relations. I know, but it would also be right. And I didn't join the military to participate in exploitation. I joined to protect people. Maybe it's time to protect the people the Alliance is hurting. The breaking point came 2 months later. Holt discovered that a Krev'thar officer in his unit, Commander Vexthar, was severely abusing his assigned Sylari clients. Physical punishment for minor infractions. Systematic degradation. Behavior that violated even the Alliance's own guidelines for patron conduct. Holt reported it through proper channels. Nothing happened. The matter has been addressed internally, the Alliance administrator told him. Commander Vexthar has been counseled on appropriate client management techniques. No further action is necessary. Counseled, he was beating them for serving food wrong. He was exercising his discretionary authority to discipline clients who failed in their duties. The methods were harsh but within the scope of patron authority. Your concern is noted and appreciated, but the situation is resolved. Resolved by telling him to be more careful. That's not Captain Holt. You are new to Alliance service. You do not yet fully understand our traditions. The patron-client relationship requires trust in patron judgment. We cannot micromanage every household. Commander Vexthar is a valued officer. This matter is closed. Holt returned to his quarters and told Lyssa what had happened. I could file a complaint with Human Command. Get Earth government involved, force them to make this an issue. And accomplish what? Lyssa's voice was calm but firm. Humans need the Alliance. You need their technology, their trade networks, their military cooperation. Earth won't risk that relationship over client species they barely know exist. So we just accept this. I didn't say that. Lyssa's expression was serious. I said Earth won't risk the relationship, but individual humans have more freedom to act than entire governments do. Especially humans who are already embedded in Alliance structures. What are you suggesting? There are 847 Sylari assigned to patrons in this military complex alone. Thousands more across Alliance space in military and civilian households. We talk to each other, secretly. We know where the worst abuses are. We know which patrons are actively cruel versus merely uncomfortable with the system versus actually decent like you. She leaned forward. If someone, hypothetically, were to help organize us, to provide resources and protection for those who want to leave their patrons, to create an actual alternative to the current system, that might create enough disruption to force real changes. You're talking about running an underground railroad for an enslaved population. That would violate Alliance law, my service agreements, probably a dozen different treaties. Yes, it would. She looked at him steadily, giving him a clear out, letting him walk away from this impossible, dangerous idea without judgment. But Holt thought about why he joined the military, to protect people, to stand against injustice, to do what was right even when it was difficult. Okay, let's do it, but we do it smart. We build the network quietly, we document everything, we create legal arguments, we find allies. And we make it impossible for the Alliance to ignore what's happening. This could end your career, could get you expelled from the Alliance, could. I know, we do it anyway. The operation began small. Holt connected with sympathetic human officers, quietly shared evidence of client system abuses. They created a network, safe houses in human-controlled areas where Sylari and other client species could go if they managed to leave their patrons. Lyssa coordinated with her underground network, identifying who wanted to leave, who was in immediate danger, who could be trusted with sensitive information. The escapes started. 1 or 2 Sylari at a time, quietly relocated from Alliance facilities to human bases and granted actual legal status under Earth law. Given citizenship rights protection, it accumulated slowly. 5 Sylari, 10, 20, 50. Patrons started noticing their clients missing. Alliance authorities investigated, and eventually they traced the pattern back to human officers, specifically to Captain James Holt. He was summoned before War Leader Thexer 3 months into the operation. Captain Holt, Serious accusations have been made. Thexer's patterns were pulsing with colors that suggested anger barely controlled. That you have violated the sacred patron-client bonds. That you have encouraged clients to abandon their lawful duties. That you have systematically undermined the Alliance's fundamental social structure. I've helped people escape from exploitation and abuse. You have disrupted centuries of tradition and order. The client system is essential to Alliance function. It provides protection for species too weak to defend themselves. Without it, our entire civilization is destabilized. If your civilization requires enslaving entire species to function, then maybe it deserves to be destabilized. The room went dead silent. This was direct, open challenge to Alliance authority and philosophy. You are human. You have been here less than 2 years. You understand nothing of our traditions, our history. I understand people being treated as property. My species has extensive history with that. It was wrong every time. Still wrong now. Doesn't matter if you call them slaves or clients or any other euphemism. Species shouldn't determine rights. Thexer's patterns cycled through colors Holt didn't recognize. The Sylari you've helped escape are now vulnerable. Without patrons, they have no legal protection, no status. You've harmed them by disrupting. They have human citizenship now, legal rights under Earth law. We're extending protection to any client species who wants to leave the Alliance system. They're not vulnerable. They're free. This was the moment everything changed. Earth government had been quietly supporting Holt's operation, gathering documentation, preparing legal arguments, ready to back him when Alliance authorities responded. Now that support became public. You cannot simply grant citizenship to our client populations. They are bound by Alliance law, by contracts of service. They can request asylum as refugees fleeing an oppressive system. That's their right under galactic conventions that the Alliance signed. You can't stop sentient beings from leaving if they choose to. Unless you want to publicly admit that this system was never about protection and always about control. War leader Thexer stared at Holt with what might have been respect despite his clear anger. You have forced a confrontation that will reshape Alliance-human relations. This will not be resolved quickly or easily. Good. Systems that depend on exploiting vulnerable populations should be confronted, even when it's uncomfortable, especially then. The standoff continued for weeks, diplomatic negotiations between Earth and the Alliance, legal arguments about asylum rights and species sovereignty. But meanwhile, hundreds of Sylari and other client species continued quietly relocating to human-controlled space. Lyssa coordinated the exodus, her underground networks now operating openly with human protection. She helped newly freed clients adjust to autonomy, disorienting after lifetimes of service, and build new communities. One evening, she and Holt reviewed the numbers in his quarters. 237 Sylari relocated this week. The Alliance is scrambling. Some patrons are treating their remaining clients better, afraid of losing them. Others are cracking down harder, which just drives more to seek asylum. How are people adjusting? It's difficult. Our entire culture was built around service to others. Having autonomy is disorienting. But we're helping each other figure it out, building communities, learning skills beyond service work, discovering who we are when we're not defined by others' needs. She looked at Holt directly. This started because you refused to see me as property, because you treated me like a person when the entire system said I wasn't one. That simple choice changed everything. I just did what was right. Most people don't. They accept the systems around them, even when those systems are cruel, even when they personally disagree, because challenging systems is hard and risky. You didn't accept it. And because of that, thousands of my people have a chance at actual lives instead of service contracts. You did the hard part. You organized, coordinated, took the real risks. We did it together. That's the point. She smiled slightly. Humans and Sylari working as equals, challenging a system that said equality was impossible. Imagine that. The resolution, when it finally came, was messy and incomplete. The Alliance didn't abolish the client system. Too many species benefited from it, too much culture and economy built around it. But they were forced to acknowledge that client species had the right to leave, to refuse service, to seek alternatives. Earth became a sanctuary for those who chose freedom. Other species began offering similar asylum. The client system didn't collapse, but it was no longer absolute, no longer something people were trapped in with no escape. Patrons had to actually treat their clients well or risk losing them. Client species had options, limited but real. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than it had been. Years later, when historians studied the incident, they called it the Holt incident or the client crisis, depending on their perspective. James Holt, when asked about it, would say, "I was given a person as a reward. That was wrong." Refusing to accept that wrong led to challenging an entire system of exploitation. Not because I'm particularly heroic or special, just because I couldn't accept participating in something fundamentally unjust. Sometimes the right choice isn't comfortable or safe or even successful in every way you'd hope. It's just right, and you do it anyway. And Lyssa, now an advocate and organizer for client species rights across multiple civilizations, would say, "I was given to a human as property. He treated me as a person instead." That simple choice, seeing dignity where the system saw only service, started a revolution. Not all revolutions are violent. Some begin with one person refusing to accept injustice as normal. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything.